This is Red Ice Radio, a beacon of sanity from Northern Europe. RedIceCreations.com.
Hi there, boys and girls. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and you are listening to Red Ice Radio. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are. It's great to have you with us. This is the program dedicated to mysteries, conspiracies, geopolitics, spirituality, science, and so much more. We feature interviews with authors, researchers, filmmakers, bloggers, thinkers, and philosophers on all kinds of important and intriguing topics. On our website, redicecreations.com, we have over a year of radio available for you to stream or download for free, no commercial interruptions. When you want to have more, check out our members area for full access to our archives. Thank you for all the emails as well with the positive praise about the program, people from all over the world who tune in and enjoy what we do here. Today we have actress Mary Sean Young with us, internationally acclaimed, active from 1980 up till today, both on the silver screen and on television. Young has starred in over 36 feature films, including such box office hits such as Blade Runner, Dune, No Way Out, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Cousins, Wall Street, and many more. She has worked with several of the most accomplished directors in the film industry, including Robert Altman, Harold Becker, Roger Donaldson, James Ivory, David Lynch, Gary Marshall, Ismail Merchant, Carl Reiner, Ivan Reitman, Ridley Scott, Joel Schumacher, Oliver Stone, and Gus Van Sant, to name a few. Well, she's with us today to talk a little bit about her films, the film industry, but also her own awakening to many of the topics that we discuss on the program. Mary is well tuned in with a finger on the pulse regarding all things related to the so-called truth movement or the alternative research community. Stay with us for an informative and fun program. Alrighty then, welcome to Red Ice Radio, Mary Sean Young, or Sean Young as you're known as. First of all, it's a pleasure talking to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Excellent. It's really good to have you here. Thank you for taking the time. It's going to be a lot of fun for me as well. I want to obviously get clear on who we're talking about here. I want to talk a little bit about your movie career first, so people know who you are and so forth. We're talking about two of my personal favorite movies that you've been in. Blade Runner, directed by Ridley Scott, and then Dune as well. Excellent movie. The books are written by Frank Herbert, but the movie was directed by David Lynch. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, but I think those two are probably what you're most known for. Would you say that's correct?
I would say Blade Runner is what I'm known for most, and probably No Way Out and Ace Ventura at Wall Street. I mean, actually, I'm known by different people in different areas. I mean, to little old ladies over 60, I'm known for Lifetime, TV movies. It's a wide range of people that
I just exposed myself as a sci-fi nerd, Mary. That's what happened there. I love Dune and I love Blade Runner, so that's.
Dune's a great movie. I've had a very lucky career, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been in tons of stuff, obviously, and this is a lot of fun. It's great to have you with us on the program. Where should we begin? I mean, should we talk a little bit about some of the film work that you've done, some of the background? I mean, first of all, just speaking about Blade Runner and Dune, these are two highly rich, symbolic movies. They're very metaphorical. They have two very interesting directors attached to them. At the time you were in the movies, was this something you paid attention to at all? If this is even something that you have gotten into, Mary?
It's funny. As I've gotten more educated on the symbolism in movies, it's interesting to look back at the movie Blade Runner and looking at the owl and looking at the pyramid shape of the building and looking at things like cloning and kind of genetic engineering and kind of wondering what the aliens are up to and all of that kind of stuff, and wondering how much does Ridley Scott know about secret societies and all of that. I have no idea. I don't know Ridley that well.
Yeah.
But when you look at the movie Blade Runner, rife with symbolism. It really is, and it seems to have a sort of foretelling of events.
Absolutely, it's the transhuman. Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not nightmares. It's, well, in a way that it's portrayed in the movie too, but it's very, very interesting, highly symbolic, highly rich. How is the work on that, as far as you're concerned, when you do your part as an actor in this? Is that something you even had a chance at the time to realize and see? Obviously, you read the script and so forth, so you understand a certain bit of the storytelling, but a lot of that is elements I reckon that is added after on. Is that correct?
Well, at the time, I was only 20 years old, so I didn't really have a lot of awareness of any of the kind of stuff that I'm aware of now.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
And I barely even knew how to stand on my mark at that point. You know? I didn't know a lot. I was pretty young. As I've grown, and this is 30 years later, my awareness of the movie Blade Runner and its symbolism has deepened, and I feel like it must have been a part of that agenda. It just seems natural that it was, because it's just all throughout the movie.
Yeah. And now, by the way, Ridley Scott is moving on and making that Prometheus movie, the prequel to the Alien series. Very interesting. What do you think about that?
I want to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, the previews look great, but I'm sure it's going to be a hotbed of symbolism for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's a very talented man, Ridley Scott. You know, but he obviously has connections. It reminds me a little bit of Jay Weidner's talking about Stanley Kubrick. I mean, he's got to have his connections into these money sources to make these movies.
I believe you're right. That's actually a very good analogy, because he has certainly proved, I guess, himself to be somewhat extra than all the other ones out there. He's made some fantastic movies. Absolutely, you're right. So, what do you make of the some of the other aspects in movies like Dune? I mean, that was David Lynch, another very interesting and talented director as well. What's your take on Dune at this stage?
Well, it's interesting because I don't think David Lynch is the same category, in the sense of, I don't think he's owned by the powers that be. I don't think that they direct or control him, and you can almost see evidence of that now, because he's really into transcendental meditation, and he was at the time. I mean, he used to meditate morning and night. That's actually in 1983 when I began my own meditation practice, was because of David Lynch and watching him meditate. He had a little timer, and he would meditate before he'd go off to work, and he'd meditate after work, because we'd all stay in the hotel, and he'd say, well, I'm going to go meditate now. And I'd be like, oh, what's that? And he's very much into that practice. And so I think when he did Dune, it was his experience that it was kind of awful. You know, I don't think he felt like he walked away from the making of Dune with getting to make the movie he wanted to make. You know, and I think he had resistance from people, and I think it was difficult for him. Isn't there an Alan Smithy version of Dune? I think there is, because he refused to put his name on it, as far as I recall.
Really?
I mean, I think that they Alan Smithy is the name in the Directors Guild that you give to a picture you don't want to put your name on.
Yeah. I'm reading this right now. In some cuts, Lynch's name is replaced in the credits with the name Alan Smithy. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
That's the insider name that the Directors Guild gives to projects that the director has taken their name off of.
Wow, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why that was the case? Why that happened?
Not specifically. I just know that they, people argue, like Dino De Laurentiis, or maybe Raffaella De Laurentiis, or maybe the people that gave them to do the money had an issue with how long the picture was going to be. Plus, I don't think that they released it at the right time. You know, you need to, all of these factors play into how a movie is received. And I think that people who invest in movies have expectations. I mean, for example, even Blade Runner, when it came out, was not considered a success.
That's right.
It only became a success after many, many years, and it got its cult status from people watching it. The people and word of mouth made that movie the success that it is.
That's right, and there's multiple versions of it too. One when Harrison Ford actually reads the the dialogue on top, the narration, and one without it. And it's weird how that happened. I've been reading a little bit back and forth on that, but I kind of like the narration version as well in there. Actually,
I do too.
Yeah.
And in the original, and this is kind of just strange, but apparently that very last shot was taken and borrowed from Stanley Kubrick.
The one when they're driving away, yeah.
Yeah, the one they're driving away, and then they cut to the aerial shot.
Yep.
The
Stanley
mountain
Kubrick,
shot. Apparently, that was given to Ridley from Stanley. He borrowed it. He took it.
I wonder why. Because that's also the director's cut ending, isn't it? Or was that the one that was included on the original version?
The original.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's on the further later versions, but it was on the original. And I was like, really? He borrowed a shot from Stanley Kubrick? You know, like, why would he do that? And there was a lot of arguing in the beginning of that, in the first release, because the people that were in charge of releasing the movie didn't want Harrison not to be human, because they felt like the hero of their movie had to be a human being. But it was always Ridley's intention that Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, should realize and figure out that he too was a replicant.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things, and I think later it in the later versions, I think he got to have more of what he wanted. Ridley got more of what he wanted in the long run, but it was a classic before that anyway.
It was. I mean, it's a great movie. There's just so many layers of interpretation to it, and you mentioned the Tyrell character living at in the owls. Certainly, he lives at the top of that pyramid type, skyscraper. It's very, very rich, very symbolic. Everything. Where do you know who more was involved in the designing and things like that behind the scenes?
I think it was Sid Mead, wasn't it?
I think it was. That's right.
And you know what's funny? In 1982 or whenever it was nominated for Best Art Direction, you know who won Best Art Direction opposite Blade Runner?
No.
was Gandhi.
Really? Okay.
Really? That was, I guess, in the days before screeners, But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, it's just amazing. And then you've also done a movie recently finished up, and I definitely want to talk a little bit about that later. Some of your work that you're doing now. But why don't we shift over a little bit and just discuss, I guess, why you're on a program like this, and how you ended up listening to some of the programs and the topics that we address on Red Eyes Radio, Mary.
You've been very instrumental in my education, and I feel like what you're doing is very important. Very important. I honestly feel like you're maybe one of the only sources that anyone in the world could actually find you and learn something, because your archives are really important as well. Because in my opinion, humanity is being preyed upon. I mean, as a species, not only by old satanic families like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, Collins, DuPont, Warner, Russell, the world's monarchies, the Vatican, but also preyed upon by these families' employees, by governments, by the military, by banking institutions, by academia. So who does that leave?
Yeah. Yep.
That's all the people who aren't wealthy, aren't connected, aren't educated, who are easy to manipulate, are easy to persecute, and who don't believe any of the issues which you cover on Red Ice.
That's right.
So that's a problem.
Yep.
That's a problem. And that breaks my heart, because I was listening the other day to one of the people on your show, Mark Passio.
Yeah.
And you had asked him a question. You said, do you ever change your mind? Do you ever have second thoughts? And he kind of went into the idea that when you talk to people, their eyes glaze over. I kind of experienced the same thing, because I spend a lot of my time sort of trying to point out to the people I come into contact with, look, here's what's going on our planet. You may not believe this, and they're like, no. So the project that these powers that be have made for quite some time to separate regular people from actual knowledge has been quite successful.
Very, very successful. Yeah. How do you think Well, I mean, this is a difficult question, is one we're all trying to find the answer to. But this, I think personally, anyway, Mary, that we need to go back very far to begin to understand that this hasn't been something that's happening overnight. And I think that's also the reason why you get that glazed over look from most people when you mention it, because they've been living in it and with it for such a long time that they don't know what the hell you're talking about when you say some of these things to them, right? So we have to go back far.
They accept reality. Well, it would be a long way to go back. I mean, you'd have to go back, God knows how long you'd have to go back, because actually ruling classes have been around forever. I mean, as far as I can, you even go back to Egypt, you go back to even tribes. I mean, there's always a chief. Michael Tsarian says something interesting, too. What's the priest class? It's a class of people who indicate that they know and are in possession of something that you aren't. Like they are the arbiters of your relationship with God or your creative spirit or that spark that's within you. Or even the Catholic Church, you can just go back that far. Or you can go back to pharaohs, you can go back to, there's always a ruling class, and that ruling class's objective is to maintain control. And that's the paradigm we live in. That's the objective, and that's very true today, which is these families want control. And I think it goes even deeper than that, because I think these families have people above them. I think my own personal belief is that there is an alien agenda and that there are aliens on the planet. And a lot of people, when you go there, they're immediately like, uh-oh, crazy person. They can't even wrap their head around that at all. But then the research is there. I mean, besides, you could go to a book like The Threat, Revealing the Secret Alien Agenda by David M. Jacobs, Ph.D. That guy's done a tremendous amount of research. He's amazing. I think that's one of the best books, and I read a lot of the alien books. But you go and you look at things like what's going on in Dulce, New Mexico. What in the hell is that place? It's like the Andromeda Strain. You look at the movie The Andromeda Strain, and these underground bases and stuff, and you go, what in the hell is going on there? And if you see any of the kind of pictures about these genetic modifications and engineering that might be going on, and then you think about why are all these cows showing up all mutilated all over, near Vegas and all in that Area 51. Like, is that on purpose? What's going on?
I know. There's a lot of questions here, and just because the majority of people don't know about this stuff, that doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just that the fact that they haven't looked into it, as you have in this case. So,
if you stick your head in the sand, you still got the world happening around your ass. I mean, you got things going on. Just because you don't want to look at it doesn't mean it's not there.
That's right.
And the thing is, the difficulty, once you know some of this stuff, it's like having taken the red pill in the Matrix. It's very difficult to live normally after you let it in. And I remember 8 years ago sort of becoming finally aware of this stuff. I was really kind of deeply depressed for like 2 years. I mean, I was like, oh, shit. I mean, there's a guy I studied, Norman Dodds, and he's a guy who I came into contact with from, what was his name,
Edward Griffin.
Edward Griffin,
yes.
And that guy's a really interesting guy too.
Yep.
But this interview that I had looked at by Norman Dodds was all about the charitable. He was an investigator for tax-free exempt charities, and this was back in the day. This was 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe 60 years ago, right? I mean, my question is, if charitable tax-free foundations were really helping our society so much, how come society isn't showing any signs of improving?
Good point.
The foundations are thriving.
There certainly is money
runs these
everywhere.
Foundations? All the families, all the satanic families run these foundations. Okay, maybe they don't literally call themselves satanic families, but there's a lot of evidence that there are satanic practices happening in between and amongst all of these families, including the Vatican, including the Queen, including monarchies of Europe, including Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and all these other families, what Franco Collins would call the Roman cult. It's unilateral. It's massively frightening when you really descend into understanding this stranglehold of control that our society now enjoys. These elite now enjoy.
I think it's part of that awakening process, if we can call it that, and I think we have different effects of it, different people. I personally myself, I had a period where I was incredibly enthusiastic, and also depends on what faction of all of this new material you're looking into, what that is. When you're looking into spiritual matters, perhaps you have a heightened sense of connectivity between yourself, between your universe. You understand a different set of it. But obviously, if you end up looking at the conspiracy first, I definitely understand that there can be a period of severe depression, if you will, in that as well. But it's all good. I think it's
severe enough to make people drop it.
You think so?
You know, and particularly, I mean, like one of the things I think is part of the solution is taking personal responsibility by agreeing to stop watching TV. I mean, seriously, you know, moving away from escapism as rapidly as possible and opening your eyes to the shocks that our society is headed for, because prior understanding will soften the blow. And corporatocracy is the leading cause of our society's demise, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the problem is that, well, all of us work for somebody. You know, unless we learn to work for ourselves, I mean, we all work for somebody. What if you are a military family or a government family or a religious background, or, you know what, how do you disengage from a structure that is basically all we have? That's really the tough part. And in my view, we really have to get back to the point where we're returning to local farming practices, including your own backyard, and protesting the food police and resisting organizations such as Monsanto and the FDA and the USDA and basically most government institutions, because not recognizing who your enemy is has been a big element in our enslavement.
Oh yeah, for sure. So do you see that because the corporate world, the corporate structure that you're talking about too, I also see that as an interface for potentially somebody else. This is a difficult one because we don't have, as far as I know anyway, and I'm concerned, we don't have people on the on the boards of these companies to actually see who's the driving force behind the agenda that they're unfolding, like Monsanto. But we know also that a lot of people from Monsanto, for instance, they go back and forth between government positions. So you have that kind of interface. It doesn't really matter if it's
one interface is a website that Walter, I think his name is Buniel or Buriel, Bunniell or Burriell. But his website is cafr.com, and it's the comprehensive, I think it's administrative financial report. It's not a report that regular human beings get, but governments get them, institutions get them, and they Fortune 500 companies get them, and they define legally who owns what stock in every corporation, every top Fortune 500 corporation. For example, Motorola, 96% of Motorola stock is owned by people who have owned it for its entire existence. 4% of it is traded on the stock market, but it's presented as that 4% is actually 100%. So it's very deceptive.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, the tricky part about the powers that be is that there's always some proof publicly. There's always, oh no, we published that, you know, in the back small corner of the New York Times where we published something that told the truth, but you'd never catch it. It's not front page news. You'd never catch it, but they have the right to say, "Oh, we did publish that information. We're legally upstanding citizens here."
Yeah.
But it's very deceptive. The information is out there if you care to dig deep enough. It's just most people are trying to pay their gas bill and get from, their one slave job to the next slave job. I mean, most people don't have the time the freedom to actually do that research and dig that deep, because it takes a lot of effort to figure out these games that these ruling elite corporations and foundations and families are well aware of.
Absolutely, you're completely right. They claim things are transparent. We know everything is out there in the record, as you say. But this is partially this is the responsibility of the media. They are obviously not doing their job. They are in the same hands as these companies that we've been talking about in
there's
many regards.
There's no media anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, my father, Donald Young, was a journalist. He was a producer for NBC News in Cleveland, and then he went to NBC News in New York City. And one of his big complaints I used to listen to was about the Jews. He was not a guy who liked the Jews in the news business. He said that they took over. He wanted to do stories back in the 70s about the Arabs. He wanted to give the other side of the story. And he was summarily walked out the door. Yeah. He and that happened, and that's really a little bit what the movie broadcast news is about. I mean, my dad did the job that Holly Hunter did in that movie, Broadcast News.
Okay, yeah.
And Albert Brooks's character and hers, just really were aware of what was happening to the media. The media is gone. There is no media. There's just there's the noise. It's sort of like you had a guest on the other day talking about governments. I can't remember his name, but he basically says the government doesn't actually have to do what it says it will do to improve society. It's propaganda. It's they pretend to do it, and they make some noise about doing it, and then people assume that they're going to keep their word and go ahead and do it, but that process never takes place.
That's right. You're talking about Stefan Molyneux, probably.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Very interesting. Yeah. So what's your obviously we have a new media, if you will, that is arising and doing the job that the regular media should do on the same. I've always argued at the same time that I've never seen a difference between going and buying a newspaper than it is from buying an ice cream or something. It's a product, and they are individual corporations, and as far as I know anyway, well, in Sweden it would be somewhat different, but if we look at it from the point of view of American media, international in that way, they, as far as I know, they don't hold any responsibility. They don't have to do what they supposedly say that they're going to do, as far as I know.
No.
So it's up to
if
people.
You have a choice between ice cream and People Magazine, go for the ice cream because yeah. People Magazine or Us Weekly or even the New York Times, the sophistication now of the neurolinguistic programming, even on Hannity and these TV shows that are supposedly alternative, the sophistication of the neurolinguistic programming involved in that is people are not aware of that either. It's actually safer to go get ice cream than it is to watch these programs because you're being affected on a subliminal level that you don't even know. You are that unaware of how deeply affected you are by it. And all you have to do is shut your TV off for a month and monitor how you feel. And that alone is proof enough. When you look at these magazines that have these images in them, it steals your energy. People think, it's harmless. It's not. You are being affected on a deep level that you're not even aware of. But these folks that produce this stuff, they're quite aware of it. Now, what is mind control? Mind control is repetition. It's like when I tell my kids, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. That's mind control.
Yep.
That's me trying to get them to do something by saying it over and over and over and over and over again. That's what mind control is. So when you look at an image, for example, some of these images that young girls are doing now, the over-sexualization of young girls, or the familiarity on television kid programs like iCarly, or there's a bunch of them. Disney puts them all out. They're the worst.
Yeah.
They over-sexualize the girls. They make homosexuality seem very normal. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with homosexuality. I don't care. I don't care if people get married or they don't, whether they're gay or straight. I don't care. But why is that on kids' shows?
I agree. Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Yep.
So over and over again, we're getting these repetitious messages on our televisions, and they're seeping into it, and it's been going on for so long, just inch by inch, little bit more, little bit. If you showed a TV show that we watched today to a family in 1945,
oh God,
it would have given them a heart attack.
Yeah, you're right. They're boiling the frog.
It would have given them a heart attack.
Yeah. They're boiling the frog, Mary. That's what they're doing. Slowly turning up the heat. Yep.
Mhm.
And they are climbing. Yeah, go ahead.
I think there's an agenda too. There's the secret agenda, and then it's going to be moved into the semi out there agenda, transition agenda, and then there's going to be the sudden agenda. And as far as trying to pull all of these pieces together in society, there's very few people who have all of those pieces, and I'm very curious as to who that is, because you can, and then you move into the sort of religious or spiritual zones, because I don't know. I mean, is there a Satan? I'm very curious as to what the whole Luciferianism is among all these families, because it's pretty clear that all of these families kind of practice Luciferianism. I don't know.
Yep.
I have no idea.
We hear a lot about it, certainly, and there seems to be a veneration for at least a mythological character of Lucifer that we hear about. So there is an identification with that.
Have you ever heard of a lady called Savali?
Yes, I have.
Did you ever listen to her?
A little bit, I have, yeah.
Svali. I haven't heard much from her, and I think she came from one of these families, and I think they got to her because she came out of one of the satanic families, and she had confessed that she had been to the Vatican, underneath the Vatican, and had witnessed the Pope. Maybe it wasn't the Pope, but basically a religious person. It could have been Adolfo Nicolai, the Black Pope, sacrificing someone. Yep. That's what she witnessed, and this was something she came out with, and people are going underneath the Vatican and sacrificing people. And as Michael Wynn talks about these practices, when you do these practices on these symbols, all of this kind of stuff, what is that? Why that's not little news,
No, I know, and at the same time, this is what's so interesting about this, because this is a really good point you're bringing up, Mary, also. This is obviously a different kind of sacrifice that they are doing underneath the Vatican. This is more ritualistic. I'm not saying that nothing that they do isn't ritualistic, but it's amazing that people can get so shocked and look at you in disbelief when you say something like this. But at the same time, if we look at the history of the institution of the Vatican, we know the incredible bloodshed that has been cast in their name, if you will, the wars that they have been behind, and the persecution of people. It's nothing but sacrificial sacrifices and wars and bloodshed that they've been behind for such a long time. So for this to happen,
there's a lot.
Not that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that's not such a big of a shocker for me. That's like, okay, it's another level only to what they've been doing for such a long time.
The shocker is that modern people can't quite get their head around it, because Constantine, when he adopted the Christian religion, it's like, hey, folks, hey, if we can't beat them, let's join them, and let's rewrite this a little bit and turn it into something that's, in our benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, religion's weird, especially the Catholic religion. I mean, explain to me, eat this is my body, drink this is my blood. I think most people who are religious people who go and practice their religion, either in the Christian faith or the Catholic faith, would be very shocked to learn that the ritual they're involved in is actually a representation of satanic rituals without being the satanic ritual itself. I think they'd be like, think about it. It's like, eat this, it's my body, drink this, it's my blood.
It's pretty Pretty
weird.
gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but they don't connect the dots, even though the dots are right in front of them to
Yep.
connect.
Yeah. See, and that's again, we're back in that situation that people are part of a behavioral set of rules and
Denial.
rituals, and exactly denial as well. But it's just like it doesn't dawn on their conscious mind what they're part of, what they're doing. Very difficult to be. So again, we're back to that situation. We have some people in all of this, in the matrix, within the bubble, that are waking up for different reasons right now, who begin to see things anew, and they see it for the first time, almost with awakened eyes. Like, what the hell is this? What's going on? How did this happen for you, Mary? If we talk about that a little bit briefly, when did this happen?
It's been an onion. I peeled off one layer and went, what? I remember, I think I mentioned it to you. I saw this video, and a lot of it came to me on YouTube at first.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this video called The Arrivals, and they had like 45 different videos. And one of them, they had a guy drawing cartoons and then looking like body parts, like tits and penises and vaginas and assholes and stuff like that. And then turning them into like Donald Duck. You know what I mean? Or another Disney cartoon. And then I saw one of the cartoons that was a cartoon like 30, 40 years ago that was so dark and disturbing. And this was a cartoon for kids. And I thought, what the hell? And it so distressed me, like Walt Disney. Then I started looking at Walt Disney and thinking, oh, this was a war propagandist guy, right? He was right in with the military, and he did all of this. So what's that about, right? So it's it came to me. I remember I saw Michael Wynn's stuff, and I thought, wow. And then I saw Nassim Harameyn's stuff, and I thought, wow. I remember seeing all of his videos and seeing that big, huge, Nibiru-sized thing on a screen be pushed out of our solar system from a solar flare,
mm-hmm.
and thinking, what was that? And of course, we never hear about it. We never hear about any of this stuff. Real people, real hardworking slaves, which is what most of us are. We're just slaves in this hierarchy. We're not told anything really true. So it's not surprising that there's a sickness in society. I mean, like if I never told my kids anything true, how distressed would they be?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is, there are so many problems. There's been so much withheld from us that I think that the powers that be, and you can understand that, are terrified to come out with it now. I think actually a lot of these families would prefer it in some ways. They might actually be like, the game's up, maybe we should do something, because we're actually destroying our own home as well,
Yeah.
The fabric of our own society is declining, and I think that the powers that be kind of figure this out, and they're kind of going, well, maybe we should sort of fix this. Their terror at fixing this must be huge. Because it's like what Judy Wood said, Dr. Judy Wood, about the free energy and what brought down the towers. I happen to agree with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those towers disappeared.
They sure did.
And it wasn't just a fucking plane,
Yeah.
It wasn't. There's no way that was a jet fuel thing that brought that plane down. There's too much evidence, and too many professionals have already corroborated on that and agreed with it. But you try to tell people that, and they're like, they can't quite let it in.
No.
They don't understand what free energy means. They don't understand Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla was a person that died penniless in a hotel.
He was
when he brought free energy. Yeah, when he brought free energy to Thomas Edison and J.P. Morgan said, "Well, how can we put a meter on it?"
That's right. Yep.
They didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want to help improve society.
Look at the footprint.
Trying to get to a place where we get the powers that be to take responsibility for what they've done. I don't think it can be done by being angry. somehow we, the people, have to figure out a way to be forgiving to these criminals, because maybe they didn't, maybe their family lines and their satanic background in their rituals in their family lines didn't provide them the opportunity to connect with their decency and their humanity. I mean, that's got certainly to be a possibility.
Well, you bring up a really good point. Where do you put the blame, if we can call it that, if you have a set of individuals who have been, bred into this role in a way? They have potentially even been mind controlled. These might be even people who are working for somebody else. This is also something I've pondered, and I've heard interesting comments from people who, it's almost like even though they have, a lot of money, shitloads of money, there's more than we can, even imagine some of these families. It's almost like they can't make a move with the money. It's almost like they actually are on behalf, caretakers of these huge chunks of money, and they're almost working.
I feel so sorry for these people.
Yeah, I know.
I used to not.
Weird. Yeah.
I used to not, but the wealthy people I have met, and I've met a lot of wealthy people, I feel like they're scared sparrows. Like they have, rich people are the weirdest people I have ever met. They are so nervous. They are so scared. Like now I call myself, what my job now is I'm a dominatrix fundraiser. Because now I realize, after realizing that my career will never go any further unless I take responsibility for it, so I went and raised money for this last movie. And I thought, and I went and I won't give any names, but I said to these folks who have all this money, I said, what do you care if it makes money?
Yeah.
You got enough money. Give this money for the fuck of it, because you can. You idiot. Hello? And if it makes money, all the better for you.
Yes.
You don't need this money. What's wrong with you? So it's like, I need to walk in there and slap them around and go, look, dude, you have too much money anyway.
Do something with it.
What do you need with this money?
Yeah.
But they all don't want to be like, oh, I gave this money away. I didn't, and their money is the biggest oppression. I mean, it's weird.
It's like the money has ended up owning them, like that comment is. All the stuff they own and all the investments that they have, they're afraid of even making a move, because I hear from now and then, even Mary, people who have a lot of money who are they're allegedly truth seekers. Even they know about certain set of these things, they want to expose things, but it's like, where are they? Where are the billboards that they could pay for to slam up some websites on up on the highway, or even put out some of this stuff in the mainstream media, or even start your own channel to begin to pump some of this stuff out there? It's like there's no movement within that. That's stagnated in some way. Very strange.
I feel so sorry for these people. I tell you that the only way, in my view, to really bridge this gap is to view these people, these oppressors, these persecutors, and that's what they are. They're persecutors, they're oppressors, is to view them as being equally persecuted and oppressed, only that they don't really know it yet. They don't actually know they're oppressed. There's a lot of, unfortunately, it's like John Lash. He's been on your show. He's really a great guest. He's like, don't worry about dying. You're dead already. You don't understand it yet, though. Yeah. You need to let this stuff go and start living again. And in a way, the poor people of the world are really doing a better job at living. And that's what's not understood by these power elite. They just don't understand that yet. Okay, it's true. Poor people are being fed a load of GMO bullshit, but you know what? They don't walk around with the same type of pressure and oppression and fear that the ruling elite walk around with. It's amazing.
And the fear that one day they might lose it all also. Yeah.
And they think that their money is their ticket into heaven or into the afterlife. It's not. It's what you do here, and the good that you do with it that is actually the accumulation of what your life is. It's not how much money you have. Your money saves you from nothing. And that's what, that's the big divide that we need to figure out. That's really it. Because I don't want to be angry at the ruling elite. I don't understand the full effect of what it's like to be on that side of the fence. I certainly don't. But the people that I come across, I honestly feel sorry for. I'm like, oh, you poor thing. You just, it's like studio heads. It's like you move up in the Hollywood structure, and that's a very Illuminati-oriented, society.
Oh, yeah.
But you move up, you have a couple of big successes, and that's because you did what you wanted. The higher up you go, the only power you have is the power to say no. Because the power, when you say yes, your butt is on the line, and you could fail. So the higher up people get, the better at saying no they get, because they're too afraid to take a risk.
Yeah. That's a good point, and it was that risk probably from the beginning, if they weren't born and bred into it, that made them end up in the situation where they now are. They took a risk, they tried something new perhaps, and consequently they got somewhere because of it. But how do we, obviously I anyway personally don't think that it's, maybe from our perspective, if I can put it that way, I don't see that things are always that aligned. I don't think that everybody who is on a certain level within what we would call the elite or in a uniform plan, if we can put it that way. I think that there's a lot of discrepancies, a lot of different intentions and wills up there, and I think it might be pretty chaotic at times in terms of how things actually go according to the plan that they want to unfold. And you can certainly comment on that if you want to as well, Mary. But if we, for a moment, go back to try to find why this is happening and where we put the blame, do you think it's fair to say that some of these people, at least, are possessed in some way by something or an idea, a philosophy? How do you see that?
Well, I think we have to move away from the idea that the elite, the ruling elite, are that confused. They're not that confused. They call each other up on the phone. There's a handful of them at the very, very top. There aren't that many people. But you could say there's a tier system. There's a people at the very, very top. They're in touch with whoever the fuck they want to be in touch with. Then there's the people under them, and you could maybe put the CFR or our politicians or our government or the military or whatever. Then there's the people under there. And this isn't even factoring in the aliens, because the aliens have powers that none of the humans really do, like telepathy, and the ability to freeze people. You know what I mean? I mean, they have a lot of powers that if you do the research, it's like who's at the very, very top probably has more awareness of more than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they can tune in to more places than we're actually able to consciously understand. And that's and possession is a real interesting thing, but that's I look at that as something that's more associated with the Vatican and with the monarchy and with the satanic families, because those are the people engaging in the satanic rituals.
Yeah.
I don't feel possessed. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm not involving myself in these, in these activities, but the real people. That to me is the only place that we're going to make any progress. And that's the hardest battle, because we, the people, are the ones being perpetrated against, but yet we're supporting things like the Super Bowl or Halloween, or church, you know what I mean, or Islam. And how fervently people attach themselves to these activities that have been provided for us to spend our dollars on.
These mass rituals, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason to have hope if we can't all get on one page. And the likelihood of people getting on one page, this is the part where I get very depressed, because it's like, there's a lot of distraction in life. I mean, your television set, for starters. Yeah.
Yep.
The food you eat that's nice and packaged real pretty in the grocery store. I mean, it takes work to be a pure person. It really does, and
In
most
these
people
times,
aren't up for that.
Yeah, it's true. It takes up all your time basically to just try to avoid things and exclude things, and you end up having to cook everything from zero, unless you eat raw stuff, of course, which is the best. But,
I mean, a place to start is to reject convenience programs such as fast foods, eating in front of the TV. Public schools, I think, are just wretched.
Yep.
Network news, and recognize the programs for what they are, which is mind control. I mean, you got to start with the basics with people at large, because they're so far behind in terms of admitting this stuff to themselves. It's so painful. It's like having to admit that you've been deceived by your parents.
Or deceived by anybody. This is also a major problem that you face. I feel are you telling me that I'm wrong? That I've never, or that even that people within society, they have that appeal to authority going all the time, that for someone, an expert, have to come along and tell them how things are, and absolutely not, their child or their, work associate or buddy or friend, family member. That doesn't work.
They've handed over their sovereignty. They've handed over their responsibility.
Yeah.
They've handed it over to their, tombstone pizza. They've handed it over to their TV. They've handed it over to political parties. Like, I don't vote. I mean, here's what would be great if I could see this happen. Everybody in America decides not to vote. What a clear message that would be.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Let's just
participate.
Not vote. Let's send a message to our government that we are not pleased, and let's just not vote. Nobody shows up to the polls.
That would be amazing. What a message.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yep.
That'd be like, wow, guess what? On the news, nobody came and showed up to vote today.
Well, it's like a war. Same thing like with a war, just why are all the soldiers showing up there all the time? Just don't do it. Don't participate in all these things.
I know, but you see, that's part of the mind control. It's part of the propaganda. I mean, you just look at the commercials, and you're believing that you're going off to fight for one reason, and actually you have no idea that you're just you're just an expendable, useless eater to these people, and the agenda is very different the higher up you go on this food chain, and the higher up you go to these ruling elite, the picture changes. It really is not the same picture at the very top, and that's what is very difficult for most regular, good, salt-of-the-earth people to understand, is there are evil people in the world.
Yep.
And that was a shock for me.
Yeah. Oh, of course. The information and the system that exists has never been for us. The knowledge, for instance, that is being gathered and hoarded to a certain degree by the university professors and everything else, to the system of compartmentalization. The sum of that, the gathered knowledge of what the mankind as a species is learning here, has never been for the individual. It's been for them. They are the one who funds it, and in many regards pay for it. Well, we do too, to a certain extent with tax.
Well, we fund it. They orchestrate it, and we fund it.
That's right.
And so in there, your dollar actually makes a difference. I mean, and that's really true. I mean, if everyone could organize to stop paying taxes at the very same moment, to provide as much protection for all individuals, that would be huge.
Yeah.
It's useless to go out and picket. I think.
I agree.
I think, by carrying a picket sign, you accomplish nothing.
Yep.
Protest through your dollars. Don't buy things from criminals. Although not buying gas is a problem, but become aware actively about how to avoid buying gas as much as possible. Because
of course.
That's part of our trying to take personal responsibility, and unfortunately, that's what we're left with. We're left with the fact that we, the people, are still holding the big basket of shit that has been handed down to us.
Yeah,
and that's a fact. We can't really rely on our institutions anymore. They're crumbling. And the Federal Reserve, I mean, if we did everything we should do, the first thing we should do is a return to sound banking. Fire the Federal Reserve banks, print our own money without interest. But the problem is any president who really tries to do that is killed.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, President Kennedy was killed right in front of the American people, so we would be damn sure to know what was going on.
Yeah. These are also mind control. These are traumatizing events for people like 9/11, and these are also excellent times for them when they actually put through their message of mind control, because people are in a traumatized state and they're just completely open to anything that is being put out there, either as an excuse or the solution, if you will, to the problem in many cases. I don't know exactly how that went down with Kennedy. But that certainly sent the message.
2 weeks before Kennedy was shot, he signed an executive order, and the executive order, the number of it is, I believe, it's 111110, and he wanted to back Treasury bonds with silver. That was what he did. He said he understood the problem. Lincoln understood the problem. He wanted to make his own greenbacks. He was so outraged. Yes. He wanted to do greenbacks, I think it was called, and he was shot. Okay, so Andrew Jackson routed out he called them a den of thieves. The charter for the first bank, the Treasury Bank, I can't remember the name of the bank during Andrew Jackson's presidency, but he got rid of them all. And then the very next president reverted back because he was obviously in on it. In terms of the right to the only reason the Federal Reserve has any power is because the American people in 1913 allegedly voted to give them exclusive right to print money. That's it. And it's supposed to come up for review in this year. Do you think we've heard anything about that in the news?
Yeah, no, not at all. But we do. Are you encouraged though by this? I mean, we even at this stage, for Christ's sake, even people like Anthony Robbins is out there now talking about the debt and the Federal Reserve and everything else. I mean, it's spreading to a certain degree, which is very good, of course.
Well, it's exponentially impossible to keep this system going in the way it's been going. I don't know if this is true, but I heard Ecuador's government said, well, we just decided we don't think we owe you any money.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect solution.
Why not?
I remember reading John Perkins's book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, thinking, here were people going into a country and estimating the infrastructure at like 50% when they only needed like 8%, right? Just to swell it all up and put that country into debt. That's what this game is all about.
Yeah.
It's making people slaves. Plain and simple.
That's right. Iceland, another good example, they had debt forgiveness here, mortgage and debt forgiveness to their people here a while back. I'm still trying to find and confirm these stories properly, but at least for now, that's what I know. This is no problem for government. They print the money. They can also just say, you know what, forget it. Let's start over. Yeah.
Rip it up.
Yep.
Hey, all of this $1 trillion debt? Here, I'm going to burn it in this fire. Let's start all over again.
Listen, if the money if it never existed to begin with, which is the case with the current monetary system, why should we suffer from the consequences of it? Just strike it out.
Well, because people are great at frightening people, and it's sort of the game. It's really the way it works. It's like if you can keep the poorer classes frightened, then you can keep control over them. Mm-hmm. But it's all based on a bunch of stack of lies anyway. So what's necessary is that people need to wake up. And I'm encouraged by the fact that David Icke had a vision, I don't know how many years ago, that there would come a time that what was unknown would become known. And gosh, I hope he's right,
I believe he's right.
I hope he's right, because I would love to witness it. And I want to be the person holding the hand of those folks who rub their eyes and go, holy shit,
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see people wake up, including the ruling class.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I include them in that package. I don't say, oh, let's go skin them alive. that does nothing.
No, you're right.
That does nothing.
You're just going to have more people willing to fill that slot and position afterwards. What has to happen is a mentality change in everybody.
Yeah.
We have to realize what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because again, if these people truly are not 100% responsible for what they're doing, or can we really hold them to blame? And how would that solve anything by skinning them, as you say, alive in the town square? You know.
No,
Yeah.
and what I've been trying to do in my own little world is I practice meditation, and here's another guy who was on your program who I've actually spoken on the phone with, Stuart Swerdlow.
Yeah.
His story is very interesting, but he has a bunch of practices, sort of mental meditations that I've practiced for years now. You know, and you can find out about him on his website. But he has symbols that he had to learn as a kid. He was blind. He's got a very interesting story. He was part of that Montauk. Yeah, Montauk. Yeah,
out in New
Montauk
York there. Yeah.
project. All sort of in the MK Ultra era. Oh God. But he learned these symbols. And then you can use these symbols inside your mind to help protect yourself, because what's important for people to kind of understand that we're not just living in a physical world. We have a spirit, and our spirit extends out from our body. We have a vibration. The planets have a vibration. The Earth now is emitting these sounds that are becoming a phenomenon. Now, maybe they're being created by the governments, but hey, you know what? I think it's more like in the vein of like John Lash about Sophia, or maybe George Kavasilis, which is Mother Earth is making all of these adjustments now, and all of these vibrations are starting to come out. There's going to be, changes, but those changes can be addressed within ourselves through meditation. Like I use a meditation that you can find on Swerdlow's website, where I surround myself in violet, and I imagine myself in the middle of this tetrahedron, which is like two different triangles sort of intersecting, which actually Nassim Haramein talks a lot about too. But and then doing that in the morning and doing that in the evening, and using these merger symbols that you can look up on his site, or using other symbols that you can actually research, which is their protection symbols. Because when you think about it, all of these families that have these satanic rituals, and they have these symbols, the little star and all of that kind of stuff that have power, that draw in these entities and these other dimensional beings. If they can do that on that level, then why can't you as an individual protect yourself on that level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
You can.
Yeah.
You can't do it if you're not conscious of it. But if you're conscious of it, you can meditate every day, surround yourself in that violet fire, use some of these symbols in your mind when you meditate, and then walk in through your day, and believe me, the bullets will pass you by.
And I'm a believer that maybe it's not as so much exactly how the sigils or the symbols are even, formulated. I personally believe that it's actually the intention behind it that's the most important, and the fact if we believe it or not. Meaning, I don't think we even need really any of these tools, just as long as we know that we have the ability to put up this protective layer, if you will, around us. That is the most important thing, that we're there with spirit and intention, 100%.
Well, becoming conscious that you actually have the ability to enact that and take action with that in your life. Meditation is a really good practice, and I think I would recommend that to we the people. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I would, if I had the power, I would demand it in the school system. But that the school system is not a system that's trying to make people smarter. It's actually not that at all. It's a whole other thing.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah, quite the opposite. So becoming conscious, honestly, is what we, the people, really need to focus on, because we can't point our fingers at the ruling elite anymore. It's just, it doesn't matter. What they're doing really is already done. It's past history. It's now what we have to do.
we have to, when we have the knowledge, we have to begin to distance ourselves from participating in these tricks, if you will, that they throw out to us.
These distractions.
These baits, yeah, absolutely. Mary,
Yeah.
I think we should take a little break here at this point. I mean, wow, we have so much to talk about. We haven't even begun scraping the surface yet. Almost, it feels like so much more.
It's fun, though.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. No, I want to continue talking with you in the next segment here, and to everybody who's listening in here again, I want to say we're talking to Mary Sean Young, actress, and what was it more you called yourself there? Was it dominatrix? What's that term you used?
Dominatrix fundraiser.
There you go.
That's my new job.
That's great. Why don't we?
My new job.
That's right. Why don't we talk a little bit about your website, and also I want to give that out to people so they know how to stay in touch with you if they wanted to, or read more about you and your interest, of course. And also, if there's anything you want to mention about the latest movie, Mary, that you've been co-producing, then I guess, or helps to fund as well.
The contact website information is www.maryseanyoung.com, and it's like an archive. The more active place that I sort of visit a lot is my Facebook, which is Mary Sean Young. And I have a Twitter, which I'm going to try and do better at, but I hate the abbreviation, so I'm going to do a little better at that. But
microblogging.
Those are those are the three places. The Twitter is Sean Young 23.
Excellent, and these are linked up as well on MarySeanYoung.com, I believe, so people can find there. You have a YouTube channel as well up there, correct?
Oh, there is. I forgot. There's some movies. I mean, little videos I've made at MSY Pariah.
That's right. That's right. What about the latest movie? Tell us briefly about that. What is it about, Mary?
Well, the latest movie is titled Jug Face, and Chad Kinkle wrote it. He's actually even still directing it. I just returned from my portion of the show. It's a sort of family drama horror, and there's a pit, and we sort of live away from society, our community. And this pit has a little monster in it, and it's an allegory for how corporations are swallowing up beings, that corporations are swallowing up human beings, and the misery that they cause. That's the allegory of the story.
Wow, really interesting. Sounds great. When is do you know when it's going to be released? Is it in post-production now or editing phase?
It's not quite in post-production yet. It's on its way. In about 5-6 days, the shoot will be finished, and we'll start moving into post-production.
Wow,
but everyone likes it so far. We've really hit on something because we've brought a lot of talent together that worked perfectly, and this is what I love about Generation X and Y and Z. It's like they are a great bunch of generations, and if I could, well, anyhow, we can talk about the baby boomers in the next hour.
We sure can. We have a lot more to talk about. Again, the website here is MarySeanYoung.com. We're going to take a short little break here, but this is really interesting, and much more is coming up, so do stay with us. Thank you so much for this first segment, Mary. We'll be right back with more.